And then there were two.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, do you want to stay until Thorn comes, or do you want to leave now?
wait, who's showing up?
Thorn, the election system guy.
Oh, Thorn. Ooh, that might be fun.
Yeah, I'm gonna ping him right now.
Alright. Yeah, Joe just dug a hole.
Yeah, do you think we're gonna appoint Joe anyway after all this?
Let's face it, yeah. Like, even though I'm disappointed the way the charter was written, yeah, Joe is probably the only option. Unless, Bear, there's always Bear or Fruity, but I don't think they care. Or Joe Bob, or Joe.
Yeah, by limiting us to a minister, we don't really have much choice.
That's really screwing.
Yeah. Because otherwise we could propose.
Okay, I think what happened, if I'm remembering correctly, was we weren't even involved in the first place. Like, this was drafted as an executive gentry. They were making it so it defends the executive branch. That's why it's a minister and not a randomly appointed, independently appointed candidate. But since they decided to make it a joint gentry, they have to go through the process of the legislature approving it. So yeah, that's how we got into this mess. Anyway, I'll wait for Thorn's response, and if he doesn't respond soon, then I'm probably gonna jump off. Because that election debate is gonna be fun. I can tell. Anyway, is there anything specific you want to talk about that we haven't talked about yet while we wait for Thorn?
Yeah, I would have to talk to the others about this, but we never did a post-election stream about
Well, we technically did for only 30 minutes because I had to go. Like, I think it was like a family outing or something like that. I had to go early, and since I was the one streaming it, I had to cut off the stream earlier than I wanted to.
Yeah, right. I forgot about that one. Yeah, but we didn't have a more in-depth stream with all the parties.
Yeah. You want to do that while we wait for Thorn?
Yeah, sure.
Just for the hell of it? Okay. Thankfully, it's pinned. So, yeah. Solid performance all around instead for Celestial Party. And yeah. Time to me to restate my stuff. Order DAO would not have the support it got if Loud and Uninformed didn't support them, but they still did pretty solid. Unit people did solid, especially since they are this is the first time writing a leg list. And since now they're technically the largest party, or more people, Celestia's still the largest party, right?
Celestia are still, or I think they may be tied with Union of the People actually.
Oh, okay. Hey, Thorn. Yeah, it's like he's.
Hello.
Yeah. So we knew that was gonna be a good performance. Our unit did pretty solid. Celestials dropped because, inactivity, but on further reflection, it wasn't as bad as we expected. However, Industrious Futures Party sort of expected that to drop because they are sort of receding from the political scene, but not really. Progressive Union, good turnout. Nuke got a seat, which is I wasn't expecting them to get a seat because the performance was bad, but good on them for getting that seat, and Independence didn't make it. Yeah, Celestials dropped. Where the Celestials really dropped the ball was the executive, where both their candidates didn't get in. The independent candidate actually had a better chance of getting into the ministry than both candidates, Invertus and Charlie. So, what do you think about it, RB?
Yeah, I had expected 3 seats for us, and I think it's pretty funny because Dow actually only got 2 votes more than us, and they got 3 seats.
Yeah.
So if we had taken the second place, I believe, we would have gotten that third seat. And if they didn't have those support votes, I expected us to get 3 seats, but seeing the results, I can understand why we didn't.
Yeah,
Because
I mean, it was close. We did very solid. We had a solid.
It was close, very close, but I think nearly all parties didn't get more votes than they had members. There was really inactivity and lots of people not voting. So nearly all parties they were lucky if they got to their membership numbers.
I think we have 18 and we got 16, but I think 16 are on the Discord.
That was really good. Like the Celestials had 22 members, and they got
to the
15.
23.
Yeah, and they got 15 votes, and they got 19 votes in the last election. So
that's a drop.
Yeah, they didn't do well at all. But we managed really good to mobilize our voters still.
Yeah, but the thing is, 16. That's I think the amount we have on the party officially on the Discord and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And like that means we're not doing that much voter outreach. So I would like that number to go up for the next election, personally. But
yeah,
you know,
that was a disappointment because last election we had more voters than we had members because we got
party members combined.
Yeah, because we got I think we got anarcho-syndicalist voters.
Yeah, that was because the anarcho-syndicalists we ran their candidate
but
on
now
our list.
I don't think we got any independents because those who want war, those are already part of us, and we won't get any independents. And the other parties, they don't even vote on their own parties. They're inactive, so why would they even vote on us if they can't vote on their own parties?
True. Personally, if Nuke was less organized, then we could have taken a few voters from them. On retrospect, however.
I think are all their members new people?
I believe so.
Yeah, because I think they all join as a group to make their own party. So I don't think there would have been a chance for them joining us directly. But otherwise, if they didn't join their own party, they would have joined us. Looking at their policy, war and nukes, I think we are the best choice for their policy if they didn't do that.
Yeah. That I'm gonna admit that probably pulled from our support, but whatever. Anyway,
I think we and Nuke can work together to have a coalition to work on proposals and both be pro-war. So it works out in the end.
It works out in the end, however. It's just a transition period right now. It's kind of getting rough, personally, but you know.
Yeah, Forn is here, and would you like to talk about the election system or whatever else? If you're talking, I can't hear you.
Yeah.
So here's unmuted. Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Yep, it's working. It's working.
I think it was just a noisy environment and bad connection. I was on my phone moving around.
Actually, that actually could do it. Alright, I think we got it working.
Yeah, so Forn, is there anything you would like to discuss with us?
Sure.
Anything that you have yourself?
We have the project. Well, I have my personal project of trying to get electoral reform. Trying to change to a rating system, a scoring system, where the highest rated candidates win. But with a formula to maintain proportionality, weighting the scores so that, this weighting only matters with multiple winners, which we have multiple winners in all of our elections. But it's kind of like reviews on Amazon or whatever. The people are judging the candidates, and the most popular candidate wins, according to people's judgment of the candidates. In terms of the election, I think the Progressive Union got all its membership out. We need to work on recruiting and trying to find more members to join our group. I feel like we have a great message, a great sort of, we're the most defined party in terms of role play, I feel, but in terms of gameplay, well, yeah.
Okay, I have to go take a look at something. Retro, can you take over for a minute?
Retro,
Yep, yes, I'll take over.
I don't know what needs to be managed, but
I don't. Make sure you don't do something stupid or something like that. That RB doesn't like. Anyway,
gameplay isn't a major aspect of the Progressive Union, kind of. We are pacifists. It's a gameplay element opposed to domination victory, but I feel like the Progressive Union is less strictly pacifist than the IFP. We had an IFP person here, didn't we?
Yes, but they left.
Okay. Do you want to say anything, Retro?
Well, the election thing is a lot more of RB's thing, and also, serious question, referendum thing. How you came up with the referendum clause in your election charter, like the Gentry charter, because you had like a section there for referendums and stuff like that.
I think I basically just, I more or less based it on what other people had written about referendums. Someone had the rule that if it gets as many signatures as there are legislators, it gets on the ballot. Not sure if that was space.
No.
I don't know. Son or didn't someone after passed or while it was being voted on complained that that would allow one party with 15 members to hold up the game indefinitely by filing referendum after referendum. I don't see that a referendum holds up the gameplay necessarily, but
yeah.
Okay, I'm back. A referendum about what?
No, policy on holding general referendum. What do you think the policy should be?
On referendums?
Should there be a limit on how many referendums can be called? Who can call referendums? How do I think there should be a way for citizens to petition a referendum.
Yeah.
Get a vote on it.
There must be a limit so you don't spam them. I think at maximum at different occasions. I mean, in one occasion you can have as many votes referendums as you can in one at one time. But I don't want it to be more than 2 or 3 times a week, because then it would be too spammy if people would lose interest in it. But I think we must.
I wasn't thinking that there would be more than 1 week, but.
Well, as it stands right now, you can't have a referendum for at least 2 weeks after the government elections, because Government Scheduling Act established midterm referendums.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really bad.
Yeah, like
I think so. I think we should have at least the ability to do it every week, and not only on weekends. Because if it's an emergency referendum, if we are doing it on the weekend, let's say we have the referendum on a Friday, and then the session is on Sunday, we barely get the results of the referendum before it can be enacted, and that's too late. We should be able to have them on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, so they are done before the weekend, so we can act on them prior to the session, not right as it starts.
How much time do you think should be allowed to vote on a referendum? Should be a standard
right now
time?
it's 48, as long as the government elections. I think
Yes.
48 is fine.
48 hours. I think
I thought the government elections lasted 72 hours.
It's 48. Friday to Saturday is 24. Saturday to Sunday is another 24. That makes 48 hours.
it's 48 hours plus the moderation reserves the right to count for 24 hours after the election ends.
Yeah. So it could take up to 72 hours, depending on if the moderation goes to bed or not. That's basically the present so far. No, I think 48 hours is fine. Gives you like 2 days for people to vote and stuff like that.
But
It's just that.
In my provision, I put 24 to 72 hours, depending organizer's preference.
Y'all post it in
Just-
chat, so it'll be easy to like grab.
The Gentry of Elections Act.
Yay.
But it's been vetoed. My plan is to split it up into parts and get people to vote individually on different parts.
have the executive said why they vetoed it?
Yeah.
I don't think so. But
Weird.
there were 4 nays to argue. Veto.
Huh. Anyway. That is just. Huh. Alright. I mean, personally, you should have split up the Gentry and the actual election law. If we're talking about splitting up the bill. Because, like, I remember we were having a debate on whether we should split up bills or have a giant bill things. Anyway. I was arguing for, like, split up bills because I knew that, one, you could just grab the bill that specifies what this does, and it's easier to read, and you chunk it up better, and easy to remember, stuff like that, so you're not constantly going back to a giant super document and looking up which law which section of this super law does what. Stuff like that.
Put in Section 5, I put in the Legacy Act that Domidor suggested that I think is a really good idea.
Well, yeah.
Well, I actually put in a different version. Put in provision for an election after the end of the game for a constitutional convention that then decides what happens next. But
I think you can leave that there. You could leave it. But personally, I would have split off the elections procedures into its own bill. Because that might be considered intruding on the structure, not structurally necessary to set up the Gentry itself. Because I think the Gentry itself is fine, it's just, there's the question of what if you appoint someone with a political bias.
Let me make a comparison that in case of the Gentry of investigation and of justice, think of that as the penal code being separate from the charters creating those two, and the same with electoral gentry, that the electoral gentry is separate from the election procedures which it follows.
Yeah, sort of like that. That's like my main criticism to it.
well, the Department of Justice, the procedures the Department of Justice follows is prosecuting people and, representing the government when there's controversy.
But the charters themselves doesn't say what is a crime or not, though. It says they can prosecute, but it doesn't say what specific crimes or such.
Yeah, that's...
But the basic function of the Department of Elections is to run elections, and they can't run elections if no one tells them how to run elections.
That's why you make a law for it. You go by precedent. They could decide how to run the elections unless there's a law regulating how to run elections. That's the point of the gentry. There's nothing in the there were roles set up in POG, but here's nothing really like telling them how to be structured and stuff like that. It basically says, alright, here's your 3 base roles, do whatever you want with them, make it work. And they made it up on their own. And
all the other gentries have had later appointment of the scholar gentry. I think RB was the one that said he intended for the scholar gentry appointed in the statute. I decided to adopt that.
I think it was Retro wanted sheriff.
Yeah, it was me.
Yeah, but I also support that because I want the moderation as the unbiased, the most unbiased part of the game to do that. Because if we elect a commission or something like that, that will be consisting of the parties, and I don't think they're really that unbiased.
Yeah.
But we can have observers from the parties, though.
Well, in my gentry, there was a clause saying that if enough people want a recount, then moderation steps in to recount the vote. Make sure everything's nice and clean. So you could do a clause like that.
I assume you can always... I think you, even without that clause, if there's a court... Well, if there's a court challenge to the election results, either the court conducts a recount or they order someone to conduct a recount.
Yeah, but that's in government session, and then you get into the mess of you're instantly removing people from seats they didn't win in the first place. And that could get messy fast because technically they already got sworn in.
I guess the Supreme Court basically, well, actually what happens to we're appointing 2 new justices? Do they have an 8-week term, or is this considered like a recess appointment, a special appointment that only lasts?
I think they continue the 8-week appointment. It's still a regular appointment, but came under certain circumstances. But it was sudden, yes, but we could appoint one, so that's why. Also, that means Tiberius is retiring next week, right? Or this week?
Right. Tiberius is retiring tomorrow.
Alright. So we have to... Okay, so that leaves 3 people on the court right now, which is Das, Archwizard, and... not Mexico. Sean Box.
But we're voting on Curazon right now, who's appointed by the...
Yeah,
I think
so that makes it to 4. Now we need one more guy to replace him. I think that will be fine. Yeah, it'll be fine. It's just that now justice rotation will be a little bit weird because Archwizard, Sean Box, and Das will be up for reconfirmation next dynasty, so that'll be fun. Because their terms only last 8 weeks and they need to be reconfirmed to continue their work at the Supreme Court. By the way, what's your opinion on the justices so far?
My opinion?
Yeah.
I've been very happy with the justices. I think they've I don't think I haven't agreed with everything they've done exactly, but I think or at least their reasoning, but I think they've been pretty close and they've been judicial. They've given reasoned opinions. Yeah.
Mm.
RB, what do you think of the justice so far? They ruled against you.
No, they rolled with me.
Hmm?
They went in favor of him.
Oh, they
RBB
rolled-
China went in his favor.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the one that I filed to protest Stringlord's vote in the social policy vote.
The entire. Weren't you playing a second lawsuit that never went to fruition?
Yeah, they didn't pick up on the other one, which I thought was actually the more important one.
Well, like I just remember, weren't you playing a second lawsuit? Okay, I know the first one was stream. What was the second one about?
It was
I
also
forgot.
about the vote. Trying to remember. It was something about voting numbers that you had.
Did abstains count to?
Yeah, abstains. That was it. That.
Did abstains count to the number?
Yeah, that when it said total legislator, was that all the legislature including the abstaining ones? Or didn't the abstaining ones count when it said total legislators?
I think abstaining counted because you were there and you said something. So you technically voted to not vote. I think that was the logic in it, but then again, that's really weird.
Yeah, but if the abstain would count, or wouldn't count, you would put like 50% of voters. But now it was 50% of total legislators, and I think that's absolute. You need to have 50%, even if there are abstaining. I think. Well, I wanted the court to figure that out, but they didn't take that case.
Did they dismiss it, or they just forgot about it?
I think they forgot about it. I think they did the Stringlord case, and they said, "Yeah,
the more popular one."
Yeah, we ruled in his favor. We don't have to do this." But I think that also needed clarification.
In the United States, I'm fairly sure they call it voting present. And usually I think they phrase it a majority of the people voting more, but interestingly it doesn't count people voting present in considering the majority, but I'm not sure. I think that's probably anywhere where you can abstain. I don't know if it's always called present versus abstain. That does. Retro?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I think it was just poorly written, that's all. I intended for abstains to count as a vote because you technically said something, and not voting meant you didn't say anything at all. But
does abstain count like a vote against, or does it count?
Well, if you abstain, that brings up the voter count, but when you're tallying something, it doesn't count to the actual tally. And if the majority of legislators decide to abstain, then the bill technically fails, but it's automatically put on the next docket.
So, in terms of the quorum rules, my preference would be to say you need 1/3 voting for 1/3 for quorum rather than 50% for quorum. I'm not sure what the quorum is for like the United States Congress. 1/3 is a reasonable quorum.
Wait, does the U.S. Congress have a quorum?
Yeah, it's Quorum Rules.
Yeah, I actually read a fun story about that once. I think it was in the 70s or 60s or something that they had to pass a bill, but some legislator didn't, representative senators.
Shut up.
Yeah, they didn't want to take part in order to stop the quorum from being effective. So by not being there, they couldn't pass the vote, even if all had been there, there had been a majority. But by not being there, they couldn't have the vote. So what the Senate or whatever it was did was that they issued an arrest order to get the senators back to the Capitol in order to have the vote. So they actually sent out sheriffs to bring them back so they could have the vote.
Oh.
So they actually tricked the senators that you just need to go back to sign some papers or something, and then just brought them there into the vote, and he tried to escape. But they passed the vote anyway.
Okay.
I know there were protests trying to keep quorum from happening for certain civil rights issues, I think. I don't know. For civil rights or against civil rights. I'm looking, you need 50% for quorum for the US Congress.
Oh. Alright. So half the representatives in the Congress need to be there to actually get a vote. Good to know. Alright.
So if you have half the representatives, you can just refuse to vote and keep any business from being done.
Yeah, that's really fine. Anyway, in my election reform, I did a lot that you did, except for like the gentry, and I think my referendum style and your referendum procedures are very similar. But one thing that I did that I foresaw that I knew people weren't going to like was repeal the Government Scheduling Act in my election reform, because that limits referendums for happening either on a government election or 2 weeks after a government elections.
Well, I repealed just the first part of the Government Scheduling Act. The second part.
Well, yeah. Well, originally I was just going to repeal Section 1. But then that turned into an entire repeal and another law being made keeping the part that the Government Scheduling Act that people actually liked, which was the term limit that the ministry can't go past 25. I think the one I proposed put it to 30, but anyway.
Yeah, I think what we objected to more was the 10-turn minimum.
Yeah.
I felt the 10-turn minimum was
too much.
It was a 5-turn minimum before.
Yeah. Alright.
I don't know how many turns they did this week because there's no video, there's no evidence that they played.
Actually, there is. It's on Wes's channel.
Yeah. They couldn't get the Democraciv channel to work. Again.
Yeah.
So it appears on Wes's channel now? Because Wes said he didn't save it, I don't know. I think we can download it from his channel if it's on his channel.
Well, there is a setting where you save streams, but I don't think he has that setting enabled.
I think
it's not enabled by default, so...
Wait, doesn't it save the video by default?
I thought so too, but I think not, because I did some test streams, like a test stream, and it didn't save. And what happened was that on default, it doesn't save your streams. You have to enable that.
It also, I guess, by default or whatever, deletes streams after 15 days on Twitch.
Yeah, that is a thing. that it deletes streams after a certain amount of days have passed.
There's no stream on his channel. He doesn't have a copy of the stream on his computer. And so Jonas was posting all the streams, copies of all the streams on YouTube. We'll have them forever. But we don't
He
have
couldn't get
the
this
copy
one?
of the stream. Right.
Is that grounds for a
I
restart?
got to listen to like the second half of it, but
Oh. Serious question. So since there's no evidence the second session actually happened, is that grounds for a restart?
I think the save file is evidence that something happened, but he could have played in private, I guess.
Yeah. I would like some screenshots from that. If anyone has it, please send me screenshots. That would be very useful.
he posted some screenshots in the marketplace for the marketplace to use.
Yeah, but that's like after the stream ended. Like I had screenshots during the stream. If those exist, please send them to me. I really like that.
As I said, I didn't see any of the stream. I think it's fine. I don't think it was the end of the world, but
No, it's not, but still. It would be nice to, have some physical evidence other than a save file to say the ministry played the game.
I'd be willing to ask them to revert to the previous save file.
I mean, it's okay. I'll argue it's like one of the stupidest ways to get a restart is, hey, you didn't stream it. Please restart so I can actually watch the stream. No, it is done, but it's a possibility.
I don't think we need it.
Pyramid.
Nah.
And so I think Joe Parrish was asking for them to make a save before they started building pyramids in case the pyramids, they lost the pyramids and decided to go back to the save from when they started.
Alright.
I don't think they will. They were like, I don't know if they actually made the save or not.
Very interesting. Very, very interesting.
So, changing topic if you're done with this one.
Yeah, we're pretty much done.
Yeah, about the election or government scheduling act. Do you think you, Retro, and Thorn would support removing or at least reforming the referendum limit to at least once every weekend or possibly two times a week? Let's say Tuesdays and Fridays.
In both our bills, I believe, we removed the section that limits it to every 2 weeks. So, yeah, we're both up for it.
I don't think either of us put a limit. I think I got a message from Stringlord, I believe it was, objecting to not having a limit frequency of referendums.
Yeah.
I don't see why we have it every 2 weeks though. Why not
2
every
weeks
week?
was supposed to. 2 weeks was a compromise because people want a midterm election. So instead of having a midterm election, we'll have a midterm referendum, which ended up being a really dumb idea. So.
Yeah, because if you like the social policy referendum, like, would we have to wait a week or 2 weeks to hold that then?
Yeah, I was in the shower. Shower thoughts? Like, when you're in the shower, ideas just pop in your head. I was in the shower and it just popped in my head that had Joneson argued that the referendum violated the Government Scheduling Act, they could have easily won the case. Because when was that referendum wasn't held on a Friday, wasn't it? Was it? Let me check. Because if it wasn't specifically 2 weeks after the government elections, then he could argue that, hey, they violated the Governor's Scheduling Act, this is established procedure, we have something for this, and yet they're trying to do a referendum, thus they lost. They can't do this, it's illegal.
Yeah, but
so,
my argument throughout the whole thing, I never got to share it, but I think it was never an official referendum. The law
no, it wasn't.
The law never.
It was just...
The law never gave the executive the right to do a referendum. So it was an official referendum done by private citizens who also happened to be ministers who voluntarily chose to make a procedure to follow it. But there was no law preventing private persons from doing an official referendum, really.
Yeah, there's nothing really stopping anyone from doing that.
Posting a poll and deciding to follow the results of their poll and their behavior.
Yeah. But still, that could have seriously gave Janisa an advantage in the case because his arguments were backed by actual law and not hypotheticals.
But I believe it was held on a Friday. I'm not sure if it was 2 weeks after.
It had to be specifically 2 weeks after the government election, or else it's considered invalid due to Government Scheduling Act. That's how dumb it is. Yeah. Yeah, that.
So
that is
held July 26th.
July 26th.
Started the first election.
That was a Thursday.
And it was 3 weeks after the election.
I think they could easily just, right before it went to the court, rebranded it as a poll, and they could have gone away with it. Personally, what do you think about that? If they just went with a poll instead of a referendum?
yeah, that would definitely have passed. But as I said, I don't think it wasn't official. Therefore, I don't think the court could have stopped it.
Yeah, true. That you could argue that, yeah.
The religion, Rafa, the religious cooperative needs to, I guess, this week hold some kind of referendum to establish the religion. I don't know if the legislature wants to be at all involved in that.
I seriously just do not care on religious matters. I mean, I'm up for repeal if Rafa falls in his face. That's how much I don't care about it. Like, as long as Rafa performs the way it's supposed to, then I have no preference on religious matters.
I think the religious cooperative should use the regular Reddit and regular Discord, maybe get a room in the Discord for the religious cooperative.
Yeah.
But they post some kind of poll on the Reddit this week to decide what the religion should be, what the beliefs should be. Although Rafa is a little vague, it says some kind of democratic process, or at least partially democratic process.
Well, you could argue the Catholic Church is a democratic process, since there's multiple tiers and you can get elected to become the leader. However, it'll be hard to find someone to argue that the Papal State is a democratic state, or a republic of any form.
Yes, but is it, in the words of the statute we passed, or you passed, a partially democratic process?
It is partially democratic process in the way that they come together to elect a pope. Everything else is unelected. However, since there's a democratic process and one of the main leadership roles, it technically might actually fit into Rafa.
And I believe the cardinals are elected by bishops, and the bishop... I'm not sure how the bishop...
Cardinals... No, yeah, once cardinal... Yeah, cardinals elect... No. the bishops elect the cardinals because I think the cardinals are higher than the bishops, right?
Yeah.
Yes, you get. I think it's either a line succession, like the last cardinal before he dies chooses the next cardinal, or they just held an election. Okay. So you could argue that the Catholic Church is a democratic process.
They have some kind of election for cardinals. I'm not sure exactly who gets to vote, and I'm not sure if the ministers get to vote on bishops or anything, or...
Yeah.
Well, churches are kind of assigned a minister, or I don't know if it's called a minister or pastor or priest in Catholicism even.
For Catholicism, okay, it's the priest, then the bishop, then the cardinal, then the pope.
But I think anyone that's nominated as temporary organizer of the religious cooperative is likely to favor a more democratic process.
Yeah.
We can ask the candidates, although voting has already started and whatever.
Space actually started voting?
I don't know. He said he was starting voting at 10, which was an hour ago, I believe.
Yeah.
Are we done with religion for now?
Yeah, let's get away from that.
Yeah, because I got a question in chat from Sun Tzu Warrior. He's the people member, legislator. Our party has spoken with both of you on leg expansion. Could you discuss this as a topic?
Okay. My main question is, are committees required or optional?
Optional.
I would be opposed to having committees because I think on the one hand, it's nice to have some group of specialists discuss a topic beforehand and come with an opinion and an analysis. On the other hand, getting enough people involved to consistently have committees on different topics. I guess you could put in a provision allowing the speaker to form committees. I'd say maybe 3 people per committee, 3 different parties.
Well, the way it's set up right now, from what I understand it, is each party in the legislature gets a member in a committee. Right?
Okay.
RB, since you wrote the bill, can you explain how committees work for the viewers who don't know how it works?
Yeah, committees. Committees. I talked about with Halder at the start of the stream nearly 3 hours ago about the live sessions. And after bringing up the topic of committees, he said his vision of the live sessions will do the same thing as the committees will do. More or less, that it will be discussing and working together on the bills before they are voted on, in case there are any last minute changes and such. And that's also the committees that before they are voted on, they're proposed in the committees, and everyone in the committee there's a committee for each topic, such as war, religion, economy and so on. So each party, each member of the committee gets to read the bill, make suggestions, comment on it and such, and then they get to vote on it in the committee. And if it passes in the committee, then it gets endorsed and it automatically goes to a vote in the whole of the legislature, which get the final approval whether to pass the law or not. And if it fails in the committee, it doesn't get endorsed. It doesn't stop it from being voted by the whole of the leg, but then it needs to be brought forward by an individual legislator. It doesn't automatically go forward. And but if it doesn't get approved in the committee, that's an indication that it isn't popular, it's unlikely to succeed, but they can bring it forth anyway. So you get a possibility to improve the bill, make sure it gets the support and people like it, and if it doesn't, they vote it down, and then you know if there's any point in trying to go further or not.
But if you have one member from the party in the committee, that's 7 members in the committee.
Yeah,
we have 7 parties right now, and that's half the legislature. That's basically having...
So the thing with that is that every legislator can be a member of 2 committees, and then they can proxy however many committees as possible. If one legislator is busy and can't be in a committee session, then another legislator from another committee can proxy for them. But as a rule, there's around 5 members per committee. So every party won't be represented. So there is a proportional representation that basically the same as our election system. That if you have
I feel like having 5.
There's 5 members from the committee, and that's 20% for each member. So if you got 20% support in the election, you got a guaranteed seat in each committee. Every committee, you got a guaranteed seat to start with. So those parties that doesn't get 20%, after all the above 20% parties have gotten 1 seat, using the same system as the election, they get based on their fraction, highest fraction gets another seat. And if all seats aren't or well, I don't remember it on top of my head right now, but all seats are supposed or very likely to have been appointed by then. And then you would ask, aren't the only the largest parties represented? What about Nuke, for example? They got a legislator, but if only the larger parties get a seat, they are not within that 5 members. And that's true, and there is a system to fix that, in that the smallest parties, they are guaranteed 1 seat, not in every committee, but in 1 committee. So they randomly get a committee seat from the largest party in a random committee. So they're guaranteed 1 seat in 1 committee. So they get some representation.
I think they should be able to choose which committee they get a seat on.
Yeah, then there is trading is allowed. So if a party voluntarily wants to trade away a committee seat for another committee, they can do so between themselves.
So my preference would be 3 members on a committee and allow the speaker to choose members from 3 different parties. And the speaker can choose the people that have the most knowledge or interest in the topic the committee is debating, and have the committees for specific topics that are relevant at the time, not have standing committees, but just ad hoc committees. So, like now, there's continuing questions about elections. There'd be an elections committee, or would be reasonable to have an elections committee right now working on issues relating to elections and coming up with a bill or set of bills on election that can be proposed by the committee or proposed by an individual.
Personally, the way I want committees to work is that if there's multiple bills covering the same topic, the speaker can just convene a committee where all the bill writers and what's it called? A representative from each party, or legislator from each party, gets together, get all the proposals together, and try and make a unified proposal for the topic. And it's
I wouldn't have a problem with having all the people that have written a bill on the topic
on the committee.
But I think it's a little ridiculous to try to get 1 person from each party, or 5 people. 5 people may be doable, but barely.
I don't know. It's just an idea. Like, instead of making like a bunch of general committees, you just have committees be special if there's multiple proposals and no one knows which to which. So you get all the writers of those bills into a committee and they figure out amongst themselves which one's better, which one's worse, and then create a unified proposal to put into the actual session.
Right. So how I would write it is just have the speaker have the discretion to form committees, say with 3 to 5 members. All members must be from different parties. And
I think the problem with having ad hoc or non-permanent committees is that if you're gonna create a committee because there are multiple bills, you need to know that there are multiple bills in advance, and then you can't just announce them the day before and then create a committee just for 12 hours before the vote. You need to be very open that there are multiple bills in advance, so you know to create a committee, and there is not enough time for the committee to do its job, unless you want to delay the voting on the bill until the next week.
The rules currently require the bills to be submitted before the session begins.
Yeah, that's how Haldir's doing it. He wants you to DM the bills before the session begins. So, an ad hoc, this system could work because you technically know which bills are going in before the session even begins. So you could spot really quickly that there's multiple bills covering the same topic. Let's make a committee to figure this out. So we're not voting on rival proposals, instead we're voting on a unified proposal.
Yeah, I'm not against that. I'm against there not being enough time to do it, because if everyone DMs the bills 24 hours before the voting starts or the discussion starts, is there enough time to form a committee, and is there enough time for the committee to work together to unify the proposals?
I think maybe the best way to do it would be to establish a regular schedule and have the session go from Wednesday to Friday every week or whatever, and the bills are due by such a time on Tuesday, and
or Monday if you want to give the committee extra time.
Well, the committee has to give their result by such a time on Thursday. Yeah, you could do bills due Monday, but yeah, you have to have some kind of regular schedule.
Yeah.
As opposed to ad hoc session.
I mean, we tried to do regular schedule, but it's been ad hoc. It's been ad hoc.
So, what do you think about Sunfu Warrior's comment in the audience chat? He says, in exchange for committees, what if we required every bill to have a legislative sponsor from 2 or 3 parties? This would require prior debate and compromise on bills while reducing such large docket of bills. Thoughts?
That doesn't solve the problem, because let's say me and RB make a elections bill. Like, we decide, let's make a random bill. I just said electoral bill because that was the first thing that came upon my mind. And then we go to Nuke and say, hey, can you support our election bill? And then sure. And they say sure. And then we go to the people. And they said, hey, and we ask, hey, can we support the election bill? And they say sure. But Dow has their own election bill. And they go to the Progressive Union and say, hey, would you support this bill? And they say sure. And they somehow coerce either IFP or Celestials to support their bill. Or Celestials make their own elections bill, and they get IFP to support it. You have a situation now where there's 2 to 3 rival bills, but multiple parties support each bill. It doesn't solve the problem, it just waters it down. So instead of you having 6 or 7 different bills, now you just have 3 or 2.
I think you're right on that. On the question of expanding the legislature, someone commented to me when I brought it up that at the end of the last play session, there were about 15 active members in total and so if you had even a 9-member minimum for the size of the legislature, you could run into shortage of people. What do you guys think of keeping the 5-member minimum, but maybe having 20% as the default for population? It's not a big expansion.
Okay, here's the thing about 5-member minimum. You have to understand the time frame of when the Mk4 convention was taking place. Right after Mk3, about 15 people were active. And during the debates, we tried to figure out what's the smallest government can be and still be functional. For the legislator to be functional and can't be just the ministry itself. So what the number was decided was 5 because we decided that 3 was like too little, and any more than that you could run into shortage problems like you stated. So we just decided on 5, but in case people wanted to raise it, they could. And I think the 15% number came from we're trying to make calculations of how much representation we want from the community, because you're running into the assumption that it was going to be between 20 and 30 people, because once again Mk3 died in a fire. And there was a debate between 10%, 50%, and 20%. 10%, that was 1 in 10 people, so no one really liked that number. 20%, a lot of people thought was too much, because that's 1 in 5 people being in government alone, not accounting for justices and ministers. Because the idea was we have 20 to 30 members who may or may not be active. What's the minimum number we can get away with while still having people on the outside? And 50% ended up being the perfect number, which ended up being including the ministers and the legislators, 5 plus 5, that's 10. 3, 15. Basically, we had 15 members, 15 roles. It was perfect. That was just the perfect number. Now,
do we want to have citizens outside of government? Really?
No. Well, it was I believe the argument was how much representation per citizen we want. Do we want a 1 in 5 representation where 1 out of every 5 citizens were a representative, or do we want it bigger or smaller? Because this was in the midst of representative democracy, or keeping the direct democracy approach that Mk3 had near the end. Eventually we got the representative democracy, and then the question became how do we want, what ratio of representative to citizen we wanted, because we didn't want the number to be too big, because at that point you might as well have a direct democracy and you might actually run out of people to fill those spots. But if you make it too small, that's undemocratic and you just make it an oligarchy. So 50% was just the number that we felt was sufficient to do its job. It was there just to justify the representative democracy while not being an oligarchy. However, since viewership has exploded to near Mark II levels from what I've heard, I'm not against banning the legislator. The 5 minutes is just there in case this all goes to hell and it dies.
Yeah, I don't think we need to change the 5 minimum. My proposal, at least right now, is just to expand from 15 to 20%. I think if we go much above 20%, we're going to struggle to get enough active people to fill
Exactly,
all the
that was the problem. That was the debate with the 20 to 15%. Because another argument against the 20%, what number was that there wasn't going to be enough active people to actually fill the roles if we did 20%.
We have like 100 people involved, but there's only like 20 of them are really active, or maybe 25.
I mean, the solution to that was the POG, because that was supposed to be, hey, if you want work for them, just apply, and you get recruited, and it gets people involved while waiting for a government position. That was like the original idea for the POG, but then sort of expanded on how do we engage the public war while they wait for elections, stuff like that, and that's how it evolved. Gentries was supposed to be an opportunity for people who want to get involved in government but joined in between government elections as a whole.
I think we should I also wanted to increase the minimum. I think 5. If we have 5 legislators, I don't think the game itself is very much alive at that point. I think if we should have like 8 or 10 legislators at the very least, at all times, to have a healthy game, really. And
well, 5. It wasn't the minimum for a healthy game. It was the minimum for a game to function. It's the difference between a person's healthy and a person's currently alive. There's a slight difference, but there is a major one.
Yeah, but if the game is barely just alive, I don't think it's very fun to play, actually.
I think it's still fun if there's 15 people involved.
And that's also the reason why the legislature can choose between 3 and 5 in case the game there wasn't enough active people to fill in 5 Supreme Court justices, so they could choose 3 to cut down on people needed.
Okay,
I
sure.
realized we could reduce the Supreme Court to 3 people. We should also be able to reduce the ministry to 3 people, but anyway.
Oh yeah, there's also a clause that we can reduce the ministry as much as we want. And expand it as much as we want. Because we know once again we're on the foresight of this game may or may not kill Democraciv as a whole, because it may or may not take off. It might just be us. So we had a clause in place for the legislature deciding to either increase or decrease the size of the ministry if they wanted to, by law. But on default, it's 5 ministers.
You got news coverage of, or at least in the gaming, you got coverage of your opening election. That's how I found out about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the motherboard article.
Yeah, that motherboard article really helped out. I mean, we were growing.
You already had 87, I guess, voted in the election.
Yeah. But that motherboard article really just pushed us a little bit. To that 107
people.
But there's actually only a really small percentage who actually stays. Like 20-30 people joined and 3-5 are active now.
That is a valid criticism, that is.
Although
because
there are still people coming in.
Yeah. Is it time for another round of advertisements for Adhesive? Go to like Reddits and stuff like that, get people involved.
Maybe a week before the election, or like right before party primaries, so they can join parties and affect the parties already exist and prepare a campaign if they want a new party. So,
Yeah.
like a week before an election, we should make campaigns or ads.
Yeah, I agree on a week before the election because
which is 2 weeks from now. Which, if that's gonna be fun, that is a fun time to be around. Anyway, let's see. RBU joined because
3 weeks from 2 weeks until a week before the next election.
yeah, it's this week and then next week, which is a week before the election. If you count Sunday as part of a week. And he called it. He finally called it. Yeah,
What are we calling?
Voting for the candidates. Space finally called it.
About the legislative expansion, I would support increasing it to 20%, but I also think we should be aware that we can't fill all positions if we get too many seats. We were afraid of getting 20, 25, someone even said 27 seats.
No, like I said 27 because if you increased if everyone in a party or declared independent actually voted, you risked you could have gotten 27 seats had the percentage be 20%, not 15%. If it was 15%, it kept it down to 20, 21. Yeah, we got 15.
Yeah, so I would support increasing it to 20, but I think there's also
You still run the risk of getting 27.
Yeah, I know, but I have the fix for that. I think we should have an upper limit too, that it should be 20%, but that it cut off with 18, 20, around that
22.
seats. 22. Yeah.
21, 22. I'm willing to cut off at 21, 22.
Yeah, I think we should have 20% to be to get more people active, to represent more views and smaller parties, but that it can't be practical at all to have that many people. And also if we consciously push in inactive people just for the sake of taking those seats and then they don't do anything, we just have to proxy for them all the time. We don't want to be in that situation either.
You do not want to be a minor bug. You do not want to be a minor bug.
I think in terms of I think that we should pass rules that establish the legislature will always have an odd number of members.
I mean, last time we had 12 and we ran into a problem what we did with ties, so yeah, we could make rules saying there always have to be an odd number of legislators. Or we can make a rule about ties.
We could make a rule about ties, about the speaker breaking them or something. But I don't think the laser being an even number is really a problem. But look, like now, we don't have a 50-50 split. We have 5 major parties and they all think differently. And in what issue will we have a tie, really? There is so much diversity in the leg that I don't think anything can get tied, really. Either it gets massive approval or it's just a tiny minority, or I don't see a 50% tie though. Not in this leg.
Yeah, but in a future leg where the party ideologies are a lot closer than it is now. It's more modern day America than Weimar Republic, if you get my drift. Then ties might become more common.
Changing to requiring an odd number of legislators doesn't significantly change anything, really. You can round, instead of rounding to the nearest number, you round to the nearest odd whole number. was either round up a little bit or round down a little bit.
Also, I support changing from rounding down to rounding up. No, or just rounding it to the nearest whole number. Because we get cases where we get the 107 votes, but because 2 people have invalid votes, we get 15 legislators instead of 16 legislators. Which 100% I believe would have been the 3rd Iron Union seat had we had 16. RB, do you agree with that sentiment?
Repeat that.
Had we gotten 16 instead of 15 legislators, the 16th legislator would have been an Iron Union legislator.
No, the 16th legislator would have actually been the independent. If the independents got 3 votes, was, I think, more or less tied with Progressive Union for the last.
Progressive Union would not have gotten a 3rd. You can forget about that.
No, I said
Yeah.
the independent would have gotten a 3rd. The last seat would have gone to.
Yeah, but the Progressive Union wouldn't have gotten a 3rd seat. They were lucky to get a 2nd seat, so I don't think
that's what I was saying. There was an independent that was practically tied with Progressive Union for the last seat given out in the legislature.
Oh, you mean the seat already given? I thought there was another Progressive Union seat after that. No, that wouldn't have been possible. Yeah, I think probably with the independent, but here's the hair versus droop thing comes in, because hair favors the last
larger
seat go.
Parties.
Yeah, no, that's droop. Hair favors the last seat going to a party without a seat already, while droop favors a larger party who already has seat. So if we had droop, maybe we would have gotten a seat. If you had 16, and if hair, maybe the independent would have gotten it.
Wait, how we've been using droop all this time, or hair? Like, what?
I think we have used hair, but I have no idea since it's an election calculator.
Alright, I think let's just assume Espresso's calculators. Didn't they want to change it to Broda or something like that at one point? Then we had to force them to keep it as TV.
It was the moderation who wanted to use Borda in the executive vote, but we said, hell no, we all prepared and nominated people based on STV, so you got to use that.
What would the executive ministry look like had they actually went through with Broda? I'm curious. Like, had the moderation went through with their plan to use Broda for the executive elections, how would that change the makeup of the ministry as a whole?
For this past election?
This past election, yeah.
Under Borda, Ken Lane would have been elected instead of Joe Bob.
Oh.
Yeah, I think we won because we had a good base. We had 16 voters, and that was enough support for Joe Bob to survive the initial rounds. And with Borda, it was
17 votes.
Borda is the approval system. It's the candidate who has support from most or the larger part of the voter.
Okay.
So it would have been a compromise, a more moderate candidate instead of a war candidate such as us, I think. So STV was actually benefiting us by us having a large voter base.
Yeah. So it favors the guy who everyone likes rather than the guy who actually has a base.
Right.
Yeah.
But nothing else would have changed.
Right.
Hmm.
But Borda, if people get strategic, has some messy outcomes.
Do you think the Celestial plan would have actually worked had they used Rhoda? Like
the Celestial plan? No, I don't think. Celestials just didn't have enough voters to elect their candidates.
I think it's actually possible because you aren't giving your support. Like for STV, you have only one vote, and it's on one candidate at the time. If that candidate loses round, it transfers. But with Borda, you have points, and those points stays with all the candidates at the same time. So if both their candidates were rated higher than our fringe candidate, they both would have gotten.
Both would have gotten the seat.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
The plan has a better chance of working than it did in reality.
I don't know if Borda. There's some election systems have an incentive to cloning, and some have an incentive towards unifying. I'm not sure which Borda is. This is an example of cloning. You have two candidates running on essentially the same platform. Does that advantage the candidates or disadvantage? I'm not sure. I think it disadvantages the candidates in Borda, adding another running on the platform.
I think it depends on how you rate them. If you rate both of them the same point, it shouldn't disadvantage them. But if you rate them, for example, if you give 8 points to your primary candidate and 4 points to your second candidate, then some other candidate can come in between them and get a seat.
Yeah.
Well, Borda isn't supposed to allow ties. It's a ranking. It just gives points according to the ranking.
Yeah, but ties are possible, especially with a lower turnout.
Well, any election system can have a tie. I mean, under the standard Borda count, rank two candidates the same. Say, these two are both my first choice. But under STV, cloning isn't a disadvantage, and it may be an advantage. That is, if you have
the actual voter support to do it.
Right. The Celestials just didn't have enough voters to win a seat.
Hold on. No, I think the plan would have worked had this been the first election cycle. Because they had the support.
If the people ran two candidates, they probably could have won 2 seats.
Yeah.
Our electoral system.
Because in the first elections, Celestials were in the same position as Union of the People. They got over 20 voters, I think, right?
In the first election, they got 19 votes.
Alright. They got 19 votes. Had they split it in half, they could have outranked the Progressive Union, right? They could have gone over the Progressive Union and got into the seat, like 2 Celestials. But they only ran Espresso that time, and they missed that opportunity because now they have actual competition. Because unlike the Celestials being 20 and the next one being like 10 or 11, now it's 20. It's like 23, 20, then 18, then another 18, then 16. The space between the major parties isn't that big, as it's very small. It's by like 2 members. So they can't afford to split voters that much. Anyway.
Yeah, I agree.
Had they kept their position as they did in the first election, they could have pulled it off. But since the political climate has changed so much in the month between the first election and the second election, that it became not viable to actually do it.
Yeah, even if they kept their strength and got the same amount of voters. The other parties has grown so much, so their overall percentage, the Celestials percentage, has fallen from... actually have the membership charts here. Let me look at them to compare the percentages between the elections.
Alright, put it like right after the first election, then right after the second election. Because now the Celestials have a smaller piece of the pie than they used to, even though the pie is bigger.
Okay, so I got one from right before the first election, the 6th of July. The Celestial got 26% of the party members. They are better than independent, so that's almost all of the server, 26%. And for the 10th of August, which is the closest one to the second election, they have 17%. So they lost 8%.
Oh. They lost 8% share. That really sucks. That really sucks.
But they lost, I think, 20% member.
Well, they had really bad turnout. That's the problem. They had 20-something members, but they only got 50 votes.
Right, based on the election results, they lost 20.
They went from 19 to 15.
That's a 20%
percent drop, yeah. 20% loss in turnout. That actually really sucks. Celestials have no chance of dying, though. I'm not saying this is like death nail or stuff like that, but can we expect this trend to continue? And is this a sign for all other major parties to come?
I think parties need to fight to stay relevant. They need to push their propaganda, and the Celestials have been very inactive when it comes to propaganda, when it comes to sharing their views and getting new members. They have basically they had a huge increase in along with the first election, a bit before it and a bit after it. They grew to be the largest party suddenly, and since then they barely gotten a single member. They have actually dropped in membership.
But do you foresee them becoming irrelevant even though they're sized by like the third or fourth elections? Or even the fifth? If this trend continues.
Being irrelevant or just
like
dissolving.
having not dissolving per se, but just becoming irrelevant. Well, you could predict dissolving too, which I don't see at all.
I think they will. I don't think they will dissolve altogether. I think they will remain this fringe religious party to take the religious vote, as we saw with the religious community thingy. Two of the candidates were both Celestials.
Yeah,
they are the ones to care about the religions. Not many else are.
Yeah, and since there's no other religious party to take their place, I don't see them dissolving at all during the entirety of this run. So I'm not sure if anyone else is going to run their own religious party. And if they do, they actually have a good chance of beating the Celestials and making them even more irrelevant than they already became at that point.
If you check the stream right now, or I can link you it, I made a stats sheet of how much, a comparison between the first and second election, how much each party gained or dropped in votes and percentages and such. So I can link it in chat too.
Alright, it's in press, right? There, I'll just go to press. And, yeah, that's true. There. Let me look at this. Oh. Actually, percentages have technically dropped for a lot of parties. me like to be. I was gonna say our union ticket dropped, but that was because we had anarcho-syndicalist support, and Dallas gained. They went from 16.66% to 20%. IFP dropped significantly from 25 to 13.33%. That's pretty bad. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out which drop is worse. Celeste. Oh! They're all just. Huh. Alright. So the only party that actually gained in representation is the Order of Dal, but that's because of Loud and Uninformed, which just endorsed IFP. And there's a chance they support another party for the election. That will skew them to become more representative in the legislature than they already are.
Yeah,
assuming loud informed voters for the party supporting. Not actually sure about their turn.
Well, what's been explained to me is that Loud and Uninformed is basically the party of swing voters. They don't know what DCIV is, so they're just hanging out with the party for 2 weeks to figure out what they do, and then they hang out with another party for another 2 weeks. So once that 2 weeks is up, they hang out with the party, and if there's an election coming up, they support that party for that election. They're basically just swing voters. Do you see this changing anytime soon or no? Is turnout slowly going to decrease from here, or is it going to increase?
I see turnout staying relatively constant.
Yeah.
It depends on the amount of new members, because if we expected an increase, we got an increase, but I think we all expected a larger increase than we actually had. And I think the reason for that is the inactives. So many have gone inactive, left the server, hasn't been interested in the game anymore. And the reason for that it hasn't dropped further, or that it actually increased, is the new people that we got since the first election. And I think without new people it will drop. With new people, I don't think it will increase. I think it will keep decreasing, but with new people it might stay the same level at least.
Yeah. Same thing. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about, or you guys want to call it?
Yeah, I think we're done.
We can call it.
Unless there is something Thorn want to.
Yeah, Thorn, is there anything you want to talk about before we call it?
Good, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thanks for coming, both of you, and for all the others that showed up. So.
Yeah, thanks for having me, RP, again.
Yeah, I can always trust you showing up, so that's great.
Anyway.
Yeah, let's end it there. Thanks for watching, everyone. See you next time.